Today I'm going to tell you the story of where I moved. This is a commonly asked question that I get when people new to Nomad Capitalist want to know, well, if you left the US, where is it that you went? So today I'm going to tell you the story of how I have lived in numerous different places. I'm going to walk you through the way that I lived in those places so that you can see exactly what it's been like adapting from a perpetual traveler to someone with multiple homes. I'm going to tell you how you can do it too. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson here at Nomad Capitalist. My team, our global network, and yours truly helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. So where did I move? Let me tell you the story, because I've been studying and researching this Nomad Capitalist stuff for myself for well over a dozen years now, ever since I realized that different countries had different things to offer. It's been about 14, 15 years now that I've been really interested in this stuff. And so I think that what happens when someone first decides they want to go where they're treated best, they realize that where they're living does not have the best of everything. They start exploring. And so if you're not quite ready to move overseas, maybe you don't need the tax savings right away, maybe you're a little bit afraid, what I did was slowly dip my toe in, where I just started traveling more and more from the United States to where eventually I was traveling about half the time, and then eventually was probably traveling about a majority of the time. I had the top airline status on United Airlines. It seems like I was always on a plane. I would go to Turkey for a week and a half, then come back and immediately go somewhere else 3 days later. And so there was a period of exploration for a couple years. That does not count as somewhere I moved, but it is something that you can start doing if you're interested in living overseas. And for me, I had spent some time in China and parts of Asia, particularly Northern Asia. I was fascinated by that, so I wanted to see different parts of China. Eventually realized it wasn't going to be a place for me. But I think that exploration really helped me better understand who I was and what I wanted to do. So eventually, I sold my final business that I had invested in and packed everything up and said, I'm going to spend a year living outside of the US. Told everybody I'm going to spend a year. And what I've said many times is it's a great way to save face in case you do the year and you're miserable and you want to come back. Because so many people look at this as a permanent thing where you can never change your mind. And so I purposely set it up to where I said, I'm going to go for a year. And so my initial experience outside of the United States, living outside of the United States, was not living in any one place in particular, but rather I basically lived out of a suitcase. And so I spent about 6 months mostly in Southeast Asia, in emerging countries. I committed to about a month generally in each country, a little bit longer in some, a little bit less in others. But I wanted to see not only Vietnam and Cambodia, but Laos and Myanmar and places like that. And after that, we hosted our very first conference. I popped back to the US for a couple of days, hosted the conference with Peter Schiff and others, and then went down to Central America for a while before getting ready for a big Eastern Europe trip, because I was fascinated by Eastern Europe and the possibility of the opportunities there. And so spent a lot of time in the Baltics, then spent time in the Balkans, spent time all over Eastern Europe. And so did that perpetual traveler thing for a while. Eventually I said, I'd like to have some kind of base. I like doing this. I don't want to live in the US. It was about that time I put a house that I owned in the US up for sale. I'd just been renting it out to some friends and family, renting out a couple of rooms, losing some money on it every month. And basically from there said, all right, out of all the places I've been, I like Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It felt, as I've said, all the good parts of the United States with none of the bad. Not much government overreach, the government doesn't bother you, but you've got wide open spaces, you've got bigger apartments, you've got multicultural society, nice people. So I went and I rented an apartment in Kuala Lumpur. And from there I went back to traveling more than half the time, but it was nice to go back from literally living out of a suitcase and just wearing the same stuff and just being kind of limited in what you could do, to having a place where you could, as a guy who likes to have different outfits, you could put your summer clothes, your winter clothes, you could put all in one place and you could travel. And so I would still do 3-month-long Europe trips. I would do week-long trips to Turkey. I would do regional trips around Asia. I'd go to Japan, go to Hong Kong, go to wherever. At that point I lived in Kuala Lumpur. And so I continued to travel from there, started exploring more of Latin America, which I'd kind of left for last. It seemed a little too close to home perhaps. And I wanted to explore further afield places that I thought were growing faster and offered opportunities. It turns out there are a lot of opportunities in Latin America, but by the time I went to Latin America, here's what I realized. There is no one place that is not your home that is going to entirely feel like home. And so what I decided was I love different things about different places for different reasons. There's good and bad about every place. And so certainly if you have a family or if you just want to stay in one place for business reasons, you can move to one place. But what I realized was I love Asia. Not only Kuala Lumpur as a base, but there's so many other places to explore around Asia. I like Europe, particularly more emerging Europe that doesn't have quite so many rules. I like Latin America, and each for different reasons, whether it's the food, the people, the culture, what it has to offer. And so it was that point that I created what I call the trifecta, where I said, all right, what if you had 3 different places? I'm basically spending 4 months a year at this point in Kuala Lumpur. And some of this is I'm kind of overlapping a little bit, but I said, hey, 4 months is about what I was spending in Kuala Lumpur. And then I had spent some time in Eastern Europe. I started spending more time at some point in this equation in Tbilisi, Georgia. And then I was doing this travel in Latin America. And I said, hey, I kind of like all these places, but not full time. And so I said, let me live in 3 different places. And the trifecta changed over time because I think that, again, there's no permanence to this. I like Tbilisi in Georgia, but as my business grew, it was not the number one business hub for me in terms of hiring or in terms of meeting people there. So, it became a little bit less relevant. It's a beautiful place to go and spend time, but it wasn't really at the 4-month level anymore. At one point, I had a place in Montenegro, I still do, but at one point spent 4 months in a summer there and realized, well, that's too much. Nobody really wants to come to Montenegro on the seaside for 4 months. And there's certain places that survived. Kuala Lumpur, for example, I think will always be a great place. And so when people ask me where I live, I think that's perhaps the longest lasting favorite place that I live is Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, a great hidden gem in Asia. And so I created this trifecta method where I had different places. And eventually what I realized was, there are opportunities in buying real estate to diversify into other currencies, to potentially get residence or even citizenship. I like going to different places. And whether it's for business reasons, you're going to meet people in different places. I just, met a gentleman here in Bogota for a week-long mastermind. It's nice to have a home. What I've done now is kind of gone beyond the trifecta. I still think the trifecta is a great method, but where do I live? To answer the question as shortly as possible, I split my time between Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia. That's my main Asian base. In Eastern Europe, because each place gets a little bit less of my time. It's more business-oriented, more of a pop-in. I live between Tbilisi in the Republic of Georgia, Belgrade in Serbia, the seaside in Montenegro, and then also now in Istanbul, where I don't plan to spend a lot of time, but could. And then here in Latin America, in Bogota. And so, where do you live? For me, for a nomad capitalist, again, it doesn't have to be a difficult question. I have people who say, I want to live in Dubai, period. That's it. You ask them where they live in Dubai. For me, and for I think people who really want to sample the best the world has to offer, where did you move is difficult because it's been such a transformative experience. It's been something that has grown and adapted with me. When I started this, I was single and had a whole different perspective on, what I wanted out of life and what I wanted out of the places that I was going. Now I'm a married guy, and so fortunately I have a spouse who appreciates and, understands what I'm doing and likes to join in and follow me. Certainly, if you have a family, if you have children, I don't think that stops you from being a nomad capitalist, but I think, you will evolve over time potentially doing this. And I think that where did you move is a rather permanent question to a rather fluid lifestyle where you can go where you're treated best. You can choose, what do you feel like today? And I think at this point, if you have, let's say, 6 homes in the world, you just decide, what? I'm in the mood for, the seaside in Montenegro for a while. I'm just going to go there. And I can get some things done in that part of the world. I always have things that are on the to-do list in different parts of the world. And so, where did you move? I moved to the world, and it's a fungible process. and it's ever growing. And there may come a time when I say, you know what, I'm going to spend less time in Bogota and maybe spend more time in Mexico City. I love Mexico City. It's what I call a focus city of mine. I know my way around, but I don't have a base there. And so I think it's a question that can have a constantly changing answer. Those are the 5 or 6 places that I spend most of my time. But whether you're living out of a suitcase, whether I eventually decide to live in one place, I think the answer to where did you move is simply where I felt best. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.